Some people will not be able to stay on Earth. People have been conditioned to believe that having abilities is abnormal. This needs to be done by the end of 2025. In the end, only awakened souls will remain in the new world.
Let us now talk about the various signs of possessing superpowers.
They will become super important and highly sought after in the new world. Many people will be replaced by artificial intelligence in this world on March 20th, 2021. Humanity will wake up different.
Natalia, hello.
Hello.
In the first part, we talked about the global transition of humanity. And here it would be logical to talk about the revelation of human superpowers in modern times. Because during the quantum transition, the unfolding of cosmic energies occurs. This is already clear to many. And people feel how their extrasensory abilities are awakening. Let's talk about this in this interview.
Yes, absolutely. First, I want to share the most important message, the reason I agreed to come here today. This message was given to me in a state of deep trance channeling. The message is that on the day of the spring equinox, March 20th, 2021, humanity will awaken as something different, all at once. This will not be outwardly noticeable. On the outside, people will remain the same, but something will change irreversibly. Because a 400-year cycle, known as the period of planetary conditioning, will come to an end. It seemed to me that the era of trust in external systems is coming to an end. People have stopped trusting banks, medicine, and education. More and more people around the world are, for example, taking their children out of school and switching to homeschooling. All the established structures built on collective trust are collapsing. The old world is already falling apart. And we are entering an era of individual consciousness, where the key skills are the abilities to receive information directly from higher sources. Those who are sensitive, who possess intuition and extrasensory abilities, are already sensing these changes. It comes as a feeling of inner emptiness, as a loss of meaning, as a desperate desire to find something real. None of this is happening by accident. Your cells, your DNA, your entire being is already changing in response to the new cosmic energies descending upon the earth. You are already preparing to open a channel of connection with the higher realms. And this process can no longer be stopped. The new world is already coming, and a place has been planned for every type of soul in this new world. According to the great prophecy, some people will not be able to remain on earth, those who cannot make the transition, and will fall under the wheels of the great sacrifice. The first group are energy vampires, those who are unable to draw energy from the earth or from nature, and instead feed on the energy of others. These people are constantly complaining. They try to destabilize energetically resourceful individuals and drain their energy through drama and conflict. Secondly, there are the slaves of the system, people who have no desires of their own and live on autopilot. Work, home, television, those who do not seek meaning, their time has passed. Thirdly, there are the egoists, those who block any change, who disregard both nature and other people and live only for themselves. Fourth, there are the materialists, those who believe only in money, who have sold their souls for comfort, who give nothing, are incapable of selfless acts, and spread negativity and anger. And lastly, those who ignored their abilities and their strength, those who, out of fear or cowardice, never accomplished anything significant, even though they had everything they needed, talent and capability, but failed to realize them, will be the last to go. How will this happen? Life itself, the universe itself, will remove such people. For example, there will be more and more natural disasters, and many people will become victims. But this won't happen randomly. These disasters will specifically affect those people who completely ignore their intuition and simply go wherever circumstances lead them. Problems will intensify, meaning the world will become increasingly complex and will put pressure on people until they are completely exhausted and fall into depression. We will increasingly see that people will lose For example, money, that people will lose energy and will lose their sense of purpose. Many people will be replaced by artificial intelligence in this world. In the end, only awakened souls will remain in the new world. These are those who are honest with themselves, those who are in touch with themselves and their purpose, those who help others, who are creators of this world, resourceful, abundant, and successful. And the same intuition that has been devalued for centuries in our world, as well as extrasensory abilities, clairvoyance, and claircognizance, will become super important and highly sought after in the new world.
Natalia, let's talk about the signs of superpowers that are now beginning to emerge in people. We'd like to understand by what signs we can assess what abilities a particular person has, so that each of our viewers might start noticing something in their own lives, maybe paying closer attention to things they hadn't before. Let's maybe list these signs and talk about each of them in more detail.
We'll start with the signs of clairvoyance. Dear viewers, please take note and write down which signs you have. And of course, share them in the comments. This will be very helpful. You'll see how many people are awakening right now, and you'll feel that you are not alone. The first sign is prophetic dreams. Has it ever happened, even just once, that you dreamed about something and then it happened in real life, exactly as it did in your dream? And you thought, for example, that it was just a coincidence. But in reality, your subconscious is at work while your body sleeps. And on a subconscious level, we are able to pick up on events before they actually happen. The second sign is unexplainable luck. For example, you were running late somewhere, or you couldn't, say, catch a flight or leave, and then it turned out there was an accident, and you magically avoided it. Or for instance, you were supposed to go somewhere, but you didn't, and later found out that something bad happened there too. For example, you were planning to go to a shopping mall, didn't go, and it turned out there was a fire there. If something like this happened, it's not just a coincidence, it's your higher self, your spiritual guides. Your intuition sensed this negative possibility and protected you from getting caught up in it. The ability to see other people's emotions or their aura. Has it ever happened that you looked at someone and distinctly perceived some kind of noticeable glow or a palpable energy around them, whether that energy appeared dark or brilliantly light, or even quite dim and subtle? Or, for example, you were absolutely and completely sure that someone was deliberately lying to you, even though they genuinely seemed to be speaking very convincingly and with great confidence. This is also a sign of a superpower, because your subconscious can read energy, the energy field, and can sense a person's true intentions, which are hidden from ordinary sight. Another common ability is predicting phone calls. For example, has it ever happened that someone calls you and without even looking at the screen, you already know who it is? If this has happened to you, write about it in the comments and know that this is not a coincidence either. It's a telepathic connection, a connection at the level of souls. This is also one of the extrasensory abilities that has been suppressed, yet it still manifests itself. The next effect is déjà vu, when you find yourself in a situation or a place and you have a clear feeling that this has happened before. Scientists call this a glitch in the brain, but in reality, it's a true breakthrough of your subconscious and memories, either memories of an event from a past life or even experiencing events from a parallel reality. And finally, numerical messages. If you constantly see the same numbers, for example, 1111, 2222, or mirrored numbers like 1221, this is not a coincidence. These are codes sent by your higher self to awaken your true nature, signs of claircognizance. Have you ever experienced a moment in a critical situation when time seemed to slow down and you suddenly knew exactly what to do? This is your hidden memory of the warrior of light being activated, a memory that lies dormant within you but awakens in critical moments to save you. Next are instant answers. For example, when someone is speaking and hasn't even finished their sentence, but you already know what they're going to say. Or when you ask a question and the answer appears as if by magic right in your mind. This is a direct channel of communication with your true self, which opens up within you spontaneously. Furthermore, if you receive ideas that seem unbelievable to others, it's a sign that your higher essence is speaking through you. In the past, such people became inventors, geniuses, and in fact, all great discoveries came about in exactly this way, from above, intuitively. Also, if you have the ability to instantly find lost things, when you just somehow know where to look, where that lost item is lying, even though logically, you couldn't have known that. This is the ability to scan space on a deep level. If you have ever made a prediction that came true without any data, this means your connection to the information field of the universe is being activated, where all the answers already exist. If you constantly experience coincidences and incredible chances, it's not just coincidence, it's your ability to influence reality and create that reality and the events within it. Next are the signs of clairsentience. Has it ever happened that you could relieve someone else's pain or heal them just by touching them with your hands? Such a person truly possesses the remarkable gift of healing. If you often experience persistent headaches or debilitating migraines, this can also be a significant sign of deeply blocked superpowers or even the profound awakening of your spiritual third eye. If you can feel the energy of places and can immediately walk into a room and say whether the energy there is good or bad, or sense that there was a conflict in that space and the energy is so heavy you could cut it with a knife, you are a clairsentient person and your body acts as a detector of energy fields. Such people were highly valued in the past because they were able to choose good locations, for example, for building a temple. If you often get goosebumps as a response to information that feels true, you are clairsentient. Your subconscious gives you hints through your body, telling you, yes, this is true. This kind of reaction is impossible to fake. People who are clairsentient are also usually empaths. Often, by the way, they suffer and even want to give up their abilities because they can feel other people's pain through their own bodies. This often scares them. It seems to them that they are taking on other people's illnesses. In reality, you are not taking on the illness. You are simply feeling it. And by the way, this is actually a really cool ability. If you want to give it up, don't, because it's one of my own innate abilities. Also, if you're an empath, you most likely sense other people's emotions, and you probably don't like being in crowds because it's hard for you to handle. Also, if your electronic devices often break or malfunction, it's likely that you have a very strong energy field, and your energy is causing these malfunctions. If you often see shadows out of the corner of your eye, and when you turn your head, there's nothing there, this is an ability to see spirits and beings from subtle realms, which can also be developed. And finally, there are people around whom animals, cats, dogs are always gathering, and little children are constantly drawn to them. Even if these people don't particularly like animals, it doesn't depend on that. The thing is, these people have a strong healing energy, and animals, being pure beings without preconceptions, sense this and are naturally drawn to them. The same goes for very young children. They are pure consciousnesses, deeply connected to their intuition, and are instinctively drawn to people with strong healing energy. And now, the final signs of clairaudience. If you often experience ringing in your ears that can't be explained by any medical reason, this is your consciousness tuning in to new vibrations. If you often wake up, for example, at 3:33 or 4:44 in the morning, this isn't insomnia, it's your gift as a conduit awakening, and your guides are already trying to contact you. If you hear sounds that others don't, like music, footsteps, or rustling, this isn't a mental disorder. It's your ability, clairaudience, awakening. Sometimes you find yourself saying certain words or phrases as if you don't even possess them yourself. And suddenly you say things you didn't even know. This is your gift of channeling awakening. Please write down all the signs you notice in yourself. And I want to say that if you have found at least 7 of the signs I listed, you are already on the path to awakening your extrasensory abilities. And if you have found more than 25 signs, then you are on the threshold of fully unlocking all your abilities. And most likely, you are one of the warriors of light who incarnated on Earth for a great mission.
But does absolutely everyone possess superpowers?
In fact, there is a very interesting scientific study. There is an organization in the USA called IONS, the Institute of Noetic Sciences. They study exactly these kinds of unusual human abilities. And they conducted a very interesting experiment. They gathered a group of psychics and channelers. And for the experiment, they took a second group of people who had no abilities at all, and they began to compare and study them. The first thing they discovered was that in the families of the psychics, there were usually other relatives or ancestors, members of their lineage, so to speak, who also had such abilities. People without abilities had no such ancestors. And absolutely everyone in their family line was without abilities. This led the scientists to suspect that it was all about genetics, about DNA, and they decided to compare the DNA. And indeed, they found this difference. And it turned out that in people without abilities, part of their DNA is blocked. But what was most interesting was that the DNA of the psychics was identified as the original form. That is, originally, all people had the potential to possess extrasensory abilities. But later, in the course of our species' evolution, these abilities were blocked in part of humanity. I think that most likely this happened during the so-called witch hunts. After all, for many centuries, people with extrasensory abilities were killed, burned, drowned, and tortured. And many, perhaps, made the choice themselves to block these abilities forever, simply so that their family line could survive. Then, very harmful ideas were also imposed, such as the notion that psychics, for some reason, should work for free. That is, it's like, this is a gift. You were given a gift, so you must help for free. Of course, this is basic manipulation. Why is it that only psychics are supposed to help for free? For example, if someone has the gift of being a good hairdresser, no one tells them that they now have to cut everyone's hair for free. Of course, this is also a harmful manipulation. And that's why many gifted psychics have gotten used to living in fear. Many have panic fears. For example, if you have a fear of deep water, most likely you were drowned. If you have a fear of heights, most likely you were thrown off a cliff. If you have a panic fear of public speaking, most likely you were killed in a square, executed. Of course, all of this is very bad, and we need to get rid of it. This especially applies to women, because from my memories, I remember many of my past lives. I remember the times when women had absolute power in this world precisely because of magic, because of their connection with the energy of the earth, and of course because of love and the ability to evoke that love. And now, unfortunately, many women have lost touch with their true power, have started to compete with men, trying to prove something to them that they are not inferior. Although women shouldn't be fighting, they should remember something else about their true abilities. And then our world will change.
Natalia, I'd really like to pause here and go into a bit more detail. What else most often blocks a person's abilities? Apart from some kind of genetic predisposition, which you mentioned is actually very important, what else can there be in a person's beliefs? Is there anything you'd like to recommend to people individually, something that might block abilities that could otherwise naturally unfold?
The first thing that blocks our abilities is our brain. The function of our brain is like an emergency brake. And to some extent, this is justified because if all the information in the universe were to flow uncontrollably into our consciousness, especially if that consciousness belongs to a small child, it would be an overwhelmingly emotional experience and it would be hard for us to handle. Therefore, in order for the brain to stop blocking our abilities, we need to explain to it that this is normal and safe. And this is easily achieved if you really understand what abilities are so that the brain gets it. The second thing that blocks us is magical influence. I'm speaking from my own experience here since I've been teaching psychics for more than 3 years now. and I already have, let's say, a foundation of what has been done and what we've worked with. The thing is, people who are interested in superpowers, like extrasensory perception, usually don't have this interest out of nowhere. Most often, it's people who actually have some innate abilities, who had abilities in the past. And these abilities were blocked. Very often, abilities are blocked through magical means. For many, they were blocked in this lifetime. By the way, many of the etheric schools are involved in this, especially where the teachers are dark. The very first thing they do to all the students who come to them is block their abilities so that these students can't see what's really happening in that school. There are also many people whose abilities were magically blocked in past lives. There have been all sorts of stories like that. There were magical orders, magical wars, and they would place these magical bands. Imagine an invisible band like that. And for people who have such a band, whenever they do any kind of magical or energetic practice, they feel pressure in their temples and get headaches. If we're talking about other types of magical influences or other reasons, then of course it's emotions. This emotion of fear comes first. People have been conditioned to believe that having abilities is abnormal. So it's a subconscious fear that you might be killed, and also a subconscious fear that people will think you're crazy. After all, for example, in the Soviet Union, many people were put in psychiatric hospitals, and they were told they had psychiatric disorders. This is also a very strong fear, and many people have various fears from this life as well. What else often happens? For example, many children display extrasensory abilities, and they start saying that they see some friends from the subtle realm in their room, or they begin to describe certain events or beings. Parents then start saying things like, "Stop lying, stop making things up," or they react in such a way that the child understands that it's better not to talk about these things and maybe even better to shut it all down. In reality, there is very little information about these abilities in general, and there is a lot of negativity. So many people, consciously or subconsciously, choose simply not to deal with it at all and to get by without any of it. But I have bad news for you if you recognize yourself in these situations. It is impossible to become happy by rejecting your abilities, because your abilities are a part of you. When you reject a part of yourself, you lose your wholeness, and a fragmented person cannot be happy. So you will have to accept your abilities, no matter how scary it may be.
Is it possible to develop extrasensory abilities on your own? You mentioned schools. There are various esoteric schools, and indeed, they often provide people with very different, sometimes even contradictory information. But how can you really develop these abilities? What needs to be done? Or is it impossible to make any real breakthrough without the help of a teacher, guru, or specialist in this field? In other words, do you always have to go somewhere or seek someone out?
No, I can't say that you absolutely have to go somewhere or seek someone out. There are many different cases of how abilities are revealed. For example, a lot of people who have experienced clinical death, or even not clinical death, but a temporary separation of the soul and body, find that these abilities open up for them. Why does this happen, by the way? Because in fact, extrasensory abilities or astral perception are connected to our soul. When we're in the body, we have our 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. And we're used to perceiving the world that way. But when the soul separates from the body, even temporarily, these abilities are activated, and when the soul returns to the body, they remain in one form or another. Many people get scared by this, suppress or shut down these abilities, while others learn to use them. But that's not the only way abilities can be revealed. In my case, my abilities were mostly open since childhood. Most of all, I had clear feeling, clairsentience, and telepathy. But when I started as an adult to practice meditation and energy work, my abilities opened up even more. Clairvoyance appeared, and I started receiving a huge flow of information. And simply because I wasn't afraid and went with it, my abilities manifested very, very quickly. It can also happen that abilities open up spontaneously, especially now when a person is going through some kind of crisis. I see a lot of people coming to me who are experiencing a crisis, like a divorce, moving to another country, or the death of a loved one, And against the backdrop of this stress, and with the help of these new energies, their abilities are activated. But many people are also frightened by this, and they look for someone like me who can teach them how to use these abilities. Because when you don't know how to use your abilities, it can be an unpleasant experience. You lack knowledge and skills, and you don't know, for example, how to turn your abilities off. For instance, if you're clairsentient, if you pick up on other people's thoughts, you can imagine how uncomfortable it would be to be in a crowd, reading everything that everyone around you is feeling or thinking. It's very uncomfortable. But you can learn how to protect yourself from this, how to turn your abilities on and off, and most importantly, how to benefit from them. Here, you do need a certain level of experience, which you can certainly develop on your own, but it might be easier to go somewhere where people already know how to work with this. Many people don't unlock their abilities simply because they have a lot of blocks, and they need help overcoming these blocks.
Natalia, what specific recommendations could you possibly give to everyone for the upcoming period, let's say until the year 2026?
Well, I'll start, if I may, with recommendations for those people for whom, in fact, I am speaking here today. First and foremost, I am interested in those people who have the abilities I mentioned, those who have recognized in themselves the signs I listed. I am addressing you, first of all, because you are the ones I am working for. I sincerely ask you to pay close attention to the hints you are receiving, and if you feel a desire to unlock your abilities, to understand and remember your purpose, why you were born on this earth, why you came into this incarnation, you need to do this by the end of 2025. Because unfortunately, those souls who do not manage to awaken in time, despite all your merits, despite all your wonderful potential, your ancient talents, who you were in past lives, unfortunately, you may not make it through the transition of 2026. Please, stop being afraid and please, fully awaken already. Stop doubting yourselves. Secondly, I advise you to avoid the emotion of fear, not just by isolating yourself from life or locking yourself at home, but by working with your fear and consciously choosing courage and fearlessness, choosing your inner truth, choosing to become whole. What does it mean to be a whole person? It means being aware of who you are, not just as a man or woman, mother or wife, but who you are as a soul, why you came into this life, to this earth. After all, you had some kind of mission, and a whole person is someone who does not devalue themselves, who has self-worth, and above all does not devalue the hints they are given, does not devalue their helpers and guides from the subtle planes. And thirdly, a whole person is someone who takes responsibility for what happens in their life. Especially you, people with potential, you first and foremost have enormous power, so please accept it already and start using it. The world needs you.
And so, how exactly do you genuinely help people to truly unlock their incredible super abilities?
First of all, I have a Telegram channel called Super Abilities with Natalia, which is dedicated to this topic. There, I host weekly live streams on various important subjects, such as the quantum transition, energy healing, how to protect yourself from energetic negativity, magic, and extrasensory perception. I also run marathons. For example, I have a channeling marathon that I invite all our viewers to join via the link. It's a 3-day event, and each day I provide very powerful practices and share crucial information that already starts the process. In addition, I offer training. My project is called the International Academy of Super Abilities. There, I teach channeling, druidic magic, and other courses. There are quite a few, especially on energy work. I don't work only with Russian speakers. My academy is truly international, with students who speak Spanish, English, and more. Probably the most powerful tool I've created is called quantum unblocking. I received these tools from higher teachers through channeling, and at the intersection of modern science and these ancient teachings, I developed a training where I work directly with my students, remove their blocks, and their abilities are unlocked. We measure which abilities a student has when they start, provide training, all the information, techniques, and practices, and after quantum unblocking, abilities are revealed by 70 to 80%. We mainly work with clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairaudience.
Natalia, and to conclude the interview, I'd like to get one more recommendation from you. Which practices do you consider the most effective on the path to unlocking one's abilities?
Yes, there are such practices. In general, there are things that help us improve our abilities, and there are things that, on the contrary, hinder us. Among what helps, definitely meditation practices, concentration practices, and any practices where you consciously work with energy flows, they all help to unlock abilities. There's also another life hack that is very helpful, and if you don't follow it, it actually blocks your abilities. It's strengthening your faith in yourself. This strengthening is achieved through making choices. For example, you decide to intuitively sense an answer, like, should I do this or not? Maybe you just asked yourself this question. Maybe you laid out tarot cards or runes, or used some other tool, and you receive a hint, for example, not to do it. If you've already turned to such a tool, not talking about going to someone else, but you yourself have turned to subtle planes for a hint or asked for a sign and you receive a sign, then in this case you should act exactly as you were told without subjecting it to logical analysis, without devaluing it by thinking, oh, I probably imagined it, or I'm just making this up, or it just seemed that way to me. Because when you first ask the question yourself and then devalue the answer, you, first of all, block this connection with the subtle, and secondly, you devalue those who may have helped you, those who gave you signs, and it's as if they no longer want to deal with you. And when you consistently make deliberate choices and truly trust your inner intuition, not just in mere words, but also in your concrete actions and deeds, you thereby significantly strengthen this profound and essential connection with your inherent abilities and capabilities. But probably the best practices are the ones I conduct myself, since I already have a lot of experience. I have unlocked quite a few psychics and channelers and taught them. So I suggest that right now, for all our viewers, we do a practice together. So if you are truly ready and prepared, I would strongly suggest that you find a comfortable position to sit in. Or alternatively, you could even lie down and relax completely. My spiritual practices are typically done through entering a very light trance state, and they truly require complete and utter relaxation. I ask you to truly focus on your breathing. Breathe evenly and deeply, allowing your body to relax. As you gently inhale, you breathe in a profound sense of calmness and tranquility. As you slowly exhale, you consciously release all accumulated tension and stress from your entire being. With every gentle inhale, you consciously fill yourself completely with a profound sense of serenity. With every slow and deliberate exhale, your entire body relaxes more and more deeply into a state of calm. With every deep, conscious inhale, you truly fill yourself with pure, radiant light. With every gentle, complete exhale, you simply let go of all unnecessary thoughts and feelings that no longer serve you. And now I am immersing you in a great vortex of energy. And now, with a focused intention, I begin to completely and thoroughly dissolve all of the limiting beliefs, patterns, and energies that are currently blocking your natural and inherent abilities from fully manifesting and expressing themselves. I won't be able to remove this completely yet, but I will weaken the influence of these blockages. I completely dissolve all forms of negative karma, including any ancestral and past life karmic imprints that may be hindering your progress and overall well-being. I also thoroughly dissolve all magical blockages, whether they manifest as curses, hexes, or energetic attachments that have been intentionally or unintentionally placed upon you. Furthermore, I deeply dissolve all fears, anxieties, and phobias, both conscious and subconscious, that prevent you from living your fullest potential. This encompasses everything where you have consciously or unconsciously lost your inherent connection with your true inner power, your divine essence, and your authentic self. It also includes everything where you have willingly or unwillingly given up your natural abilities, your unique talents, and your personal sovereignty because of feelings of deep-seated guilt, unworthiness, or self-blame, thereby restoring your complete energetic integrity and personal empowerment. I completely destroy, utterly burn, and thoroughly dissolve all of this, all the pervasive mental clutter, all the heavy emotional burden. As everything dissolves in my vortex, a sense of inner silence and emptiness is created. You truly enjoy this wonderful feeling of complete freedom and peaceful quiet. And now a completely blank screen, utterly devoid of any imagery, appears vividly within your subconscious mind. If there were a specific number that possessed the incredible power to truly activate your inherent superpowers, what exact number would that ultimately be, in your opinion? If the very key to your unique abilities were a specific color, what exact color would it truly be? If the very key to your unique abilities were a powerful symbol, what specific symbol would it truly be? If your abilities were a word, if your abilities were an animal, what animal would it be? All the hints you receive, no matter how clear or vague they may be, you will remember very well. And even after we finish this practice, this information will continue to reveal itself to you in all its depth. Each and every one of the valuable keys you receive is an essential part and a crucial clue to truly unlocking your ultimate and full potential. By carefully deciphering these intricate symbols, you will truly learn everything you profoundly need to know about your authentic self and fully realize your ultimate purpose. Now I will bring you back to the here and now. We will take 3 deep breaths in and out. And on the third inhale and exhale, you will open your eyes and all unpleasant sensations will disappear. All normal sensations will return to your body. Take a breath in and out and come back. Take a breath in and out and awaken. Take one more breath in and out and open your eyes. Everyone who received clues, I ask you to write your answers in the comments. These answers are very important. It's important not to forget them. I will also try to give some of my own comments. I can't promise that I'll reply to everyone, but I will at least try. To everyone who went through this practice with me, I would be grateful for your feedback, not only about the symbols, but also about what sensations you experienced. Please write all of this down.